Good morning, and thank you for joining me for a tour of the InfoSphere Information Governance Catalog and a closer look at how it will help you meet your requirements for risk data aggregation and compliance with regulatory initiatives such as BCBS 239. Our senior risk compliance officer is preparing for a meeting with our regulators. As a member of our risk advisory team, I am reviewing various reports that are produced by our risk engine. Being fairly new to the bank, I want to also see exactly how we are defining several of our key risk metrics, one of them being exposure at default. So I use a hotkey to bring up the Glossary Anywhere tool, brings up some of the terms that have exposure in it, along with the details of exposure at default. But I want to see more. So I open it in the browser to bring up the Information Governance Catalog. Here, looking at the business term more closely, I can see the detailed definitions, long description. I can also see the context for this business term as the Information Governance Catalog arranges terms in a hierarchy. We can also see labels. These are like sticky notes that our subject matter experts have identified to all objects and assets pertaining to BCBS 239. Important for governance is stewardship, and we can have multiple stewards. We can hover with a special creative feature in the catalog called Smart Hover and see some details, but we can actually go to Pete Hornberger's page, see that he might be in the same office as me, and look at the other assets that Pete manages to get a better understanding of his overall responsibilities. Coming back to exposure at default, we can look at general information and see some of the other properties that are included in the box in the catalog, such as abbreviation, and also see that we can extend the catalog with custom attributes, in this case using a link to point to another document that's elsewhere in the bank that has details of the expressions that are used that show how some of these calculations are actually produced, increasing our common understanding. We can also look at related terms. There are many relationships that exist among our terms. In this case, I'm looking at a term called involved party risk exposure type and see that it also has different relationships. There's an asset class, which is actually a generic term that's produced by our regulators, and we can have different contexts, the other one being custom terms that are appropriate directly for our bank. All these terms are accelerated by the banking data warehouse that IBM offers to get you started more quickly on your governance journey. We're going to come back to assigned assets momentarily, but first we want to look at history. Strong best practices for governance insist that we not only know the meaning of a term, but also where it came from, how it was derived, how it evolved. And here we can actually see for a particular property like long description when it was changed and who changed it. So if there are any concerns about a particular definition and how it was altered over time, we can go back and check. Coming back to assigned assets, we see that this points to many different objects, not just a column, but it could point to a report, such as the report that we just started this on, or a column, or other objects within the enterprise. Can even point to the logical model that started this and helped create our business intelligence reporting system. And this is important if you want to see the origin of a particular data item. But we're actually going to look here at the credit risk calculation module, which is the risk engine, which is represented by IBM Algorithmics, that is at the core of our environment. And we ask for business lineage, which brings up the graphical lineage reporting tool and allows us to move back and forth through a full zoom in, zoom out capability to see the original Cognos report that I was reviewing, to see some of the cube details and metadata that's appropriate from our business intelligence system, and also see for the risk engine some of its critical sources, such as the all-important counterparty hierarchy that feeds the calculation module. We see all of our sources, which are, in this case, commercial loan systems from around the globe, and also can see the flat file that brings these rows together to be fed into the risk engine. And here we ask for data lineage. Data lineage is a more detailed, closer look, using the same graphical lineage viewer where I can zoom and zoom out. But now I see additional icons that represent transformation details that at business lineage our users may not need to look at. But I, being a little bit more technical, want to get to the lower level. I want to see these ETL developments, and also, because we began this research with exposure at default, jump down to column lineage, which shows me further detail with every lineage path that leads to the calculation and the movement and derivation of exposure at default. So we can see all the different flows of the different columns that went into this particular calculation. But now, critical for BCBS 239, I want to look much more closely at my sources. BCBS 239 insists that we can demonstrate that we have awareness of our sources, how they are managed, how they are controlled, and their data quality. Looking at the table for European commercial loans, I can see some details on it, very similar to what we saw with terms. And if I'm a BI report developer, get my list of columns and some of the metadata that's appropriate. From a quality analysis perspective, I can see what our data analysts have performed when doing profiling of this table. I can see that there were 4,700 rows that were analyzed very recently in June of this year. And of course, if that was saying that it was analyzed in 2012, I might request an updated analysis to give me more confidence in the table. We also see a very important relationship governed by rules. This is an information governance rule that publicizes to the organization the hard work that's being performed to make sure that these tables and their data are intact and up to the proper quality. This defines what this is from a business perspective. It also has labels and stewards just like any other asset, but it points to the actual syntactical rule that is being run on perhaps a nightly basis called maturity date cannot be null. This is the actual rule that is bound to a formal column and a formal table within our system. There we see the European commercial loans, and this is what is being executed to validate that these maturity dates are in fact correct. We can also look directly at the output results that are automatically produced here and see what the execution history is that's ensuring that our benchmark of less than 5% of bad maturity dates is being met. We can actually see here a trend. We weren't doing too well. Now it's improved, and 110 records in the last roll were actually only bad, and now we've finally improved the conditions of our quality, where it shows number of records not met is 0. My confidence in this table is increased, and I can tell our compliance officer that the data that's leading to the reports is as it should be, and it is valid, leading to better decisions and more confidence throughout the organization with common understanding for your compliance requirements and to meet your regulators' demands. Thank you very much for joining me on this demo.